Sure. It begins to President-elect Trump. We, the undersigned, urge you to take immediate and sustained action against human-caused climate change. We write as concerned individuals, united in recognizing that the science is unequivocal and America must respond.
Perfect. So tell me about the letter. How did you get involved in the letter?
Well, I got involved like a lot of people on the letter did. It started with a couple of folks in the Northeast putting this together, and then it was spread by word of mouth on social media and really colleague to colleague. And I think it took off quickly because it reflected feelings that a lot of us had on what we need to do.
Yeah. Do you think that Trump is going to read this letter?
You know, I don't know. I hope he will. I mean, I know any president-elect is certainly deluged by a lot of information, but I hope he takes the time to read it.
Yeah. What are your biggest concerns for climate change in the Trump administration?
You know, I'll say two things to that. I mean, I'm concerned that there are signals being sent here at the outset that some progress we've made in recent years might get stalled or reversed, and that some policies might go in place that I think take us in the wrong direction. You know, I'll also say that we need to wait and see. I mean, I don't like to judge anything before it happens, but you know, it's two fronts for me. I mean, we have a real concern here that we need to deal with, both for those of us here in Colorado and around the world. And the flip side of it is we have a real opportunity. You know, doing the things that we need to do around climate change also presents other opportunity for us to do the things we should do for our country anyway.
Sure. So far, is he doing what you've expected?
You know, I don't know. I wasn't really sure what to expect in the sense that, you know, for the president-elect anyway, you know, his longer-term record is one of variability on this. He's had times where he's absolutely dismissed climate change. He's had other times where he has shown support for action on it, so it was hard for me to predict.
Sure. What do you think so far of the appointments that he's made, like especially with Rick Perry, with Scott Pruitt? Like, these are kind of not too climate change friendly or minded people.
No, they're not, at least in their past record. I mean, again, I try very hard to take a little bit of a wait and see approach and assume the best, but it's true that when it comes to environmental issues kind of across the board, he seems to be making choices of folks who have a past record of opposing policies that will protect our environment, and you know, I hope that's not the case. That does cause me some worry.
Yeah. What did the election results tell you about how Americans view your work and view climate change?
Well, I'll say a couple things to that. I mean, I know a number of us were surprised at the outcome of the election, but certainly one of the lessons from it that we've heard a lot is that, you know, this country is, there are people in this country who are hurting. There are people who want to see change. I don't fault that for a second. You know, one of the things we need to do is get rid of some of our divisiveness and come together, listen to each other, understand. And that's one lesson for me out of this election that I'm trying very hard to do. The other thing I'd say, though, when it comes to climate change is the election doesn't reflect the vast majority of opinion of American people. I mean, a very strong majority of Americans want to see progress on climate change, want to see progress on clean energy, want to see us be part of the Paris Agreement. 2/3 or more of Americans want that, and so that doesn't necessarily correlate with what the election showed us.
Sure. And do you think that Trump will hear the voice of those people saying that they want that changed? Are you hopeful that I guess, let me rephrase that. Are you hopeful that Trump will hear the voice of those people and listen to them?
I hope he does. You know, I mean, ultimately it's the president's job to try to reflect and enact the will of the American people. And, you know, these are numbers that would be called a landslide in an election, right? And so that, you know, I know that campaigns are about rhetoric and about winning and all of that, but it's very clear that most Americans want this, want to see progress on it, recognize both the dangers but also the opportunities in front of us. So I hope he and his administration ultimately, when they get down to work, pay attention to that and respond accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question Kyle gave me to throw at you.
Okay.
Isn't this what happens when your side loses? You don't necessarily get what you want or what you were hoping for?
Yeah, I know there has been some of that. I mean, you know, what I would say to this one is that this issue is not about a side losing. It's what I said a moment ago, right? That this is, you know, 7 in 10 registered voters want to see progress on climate change, want to see clean energy, want to see us go forward on this. So this is really, you know, if it's sides, they're certainly unequal sides. And so, you know, absolutely, there are winners and losers in all of this, but this is one where I think it's actually pretty easy as a leader to look at the will of the American people and try to make progress on this and not have that be one side versus another.
Absolutely. what are some effects of climate change that we could see right here in Colorado?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a number of things, right? In that for Colorado, the concerns, many of them are going to be around water. You know, we're a state that both depends heavily on water for all kinds of things, for our farmers, for running our cities, for our recreation industry, and all of those face real threats from climate change. You know, whether you like to ski, whether you like to fish and hunt, you know, whether you're a farmer on the western slope or here on the Front Range trying to rely on a profitable business, all of those are going to face some problems in the future. If you live in cities, cities are going to get a lot hotter, and that's going to change your way of life. If you like to be in forests or you live in forests, fires are more likely, insect outbreaks are more likely. All of that's a concern. You know, the other thing I'd say about it is that, you know, again, if we get going, it's an opportunity for Colorado. I mean, Colorado is a really strong state for the ability to push forward innovation in all of the sectors that we need here. So there's real strengths here in clean energy, in agriculture, in transportation, in construction and urban planning. And all of those are seeing some innovations that doing something about this issue presents a real opportunity for Coloradans.
Sure, and also like during the election, Trump was also pretty strongly voiced for states' rights. Being that he was kind of saying that, do you think that regardless of if some of the federal stuff can get a little hung up, that we can still have a big effect on climate change here in Colorado?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a really good point because, you know, when we look back, I mean, the current administration, the outgoing administration has done some very good things to make progress around climate change, but the reality is that most of the progress we have seen in the last decade or two is not coming at the federal level regardless of that. It's coming from the actions of states, from cities, from communities, from corporations, and I expect all of that to still go forward, and if that's supported and promoted, great, because that's where a lot of our progress is going to come from regardless.
What's next for climate change? What's next for climate change in Colorado? All right, let me rephrase that. What's next for climate change here in Colorado?
What's next? Well, I hope what's next is that, you know, regardless of some of the federal approaches, the state continues to do what it's been doing lately to some degree and takes it seriously and looks at it both as a responsibility to try to protect things both for the current and for future generations, and also an opportunity to continue to push the state forward in some ways that we need to do. You know, investing in clean energy, you know, helping farmers go forward in ways that both can address climate change but help them do better. All of that I think is in front of us. I hope that's what's next.
Anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to make sure that we touched on regarding the letter, regarding climate change, anything?
Yeah, you know what I would say is this boils down to a pretty simple thing. I mean, I know there's been a lot of lack of trust and a lot of division around this, but you know, it's pretty simple. I mean, climate change is real. It is us, and I know that can divide people and that can make people kind of sad or frustrated or worried about what to do, but the good side of this is, you know, we can fix this. We just have to come together and do it, and there's an opportunity for a lot of us to fix it in ways that helps people who most need it today and then helps people in the future, and you know, what could be better than that?
There's a really interesting phrase that I hear a lot in regard to climate change where people, like, when they say, you know, Rick Perry was appointed, Rick Perry doesn't believe in climate change. Do you believe in climate change?
Yeah, you know, my answer to that is that climate change is not about belief. You know, science is not about belief. You know, the Earth doesn't really care what we believe or not. It cares about the policies that we make. But even on that, you know, when I was saying this, I mean, obviously, I wish that some of these leaders would take a different position. But what I'm focused on most right now is almost regardless of the position, what are the solutions that can help? Even in Texas, right? Even in Texas under Rick Perry, you know, Texas has seen some significant advance in the use of wind energy and the use of clean energy. And if we're doing those things, great. That's what we need to do.
Awesome. That was great. Alan, thank you very much.
Thank you.